So our final show that we are going to talk about, SUBURGATOry. I was thinking, I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to do the little scroll, but I'm not fancy enough. So
It's too fancy.
SUBURGATOry.
Flipping?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, close.
I forgot I gave it this.
It has been like an hour since we did it. I understand. It's been a long afternoon.
I actually think I meant to give it a B, but that's fine.
Well,
A B plus works too.
Okay. Why'd you give it a B+?
I don't remember why I had a B plus over a B, because I was debating between the two, and I was like, well, I shouldn't do it.
Well, you
twice.
tend to be nice, so.
No, but I was thinking about SUBURGATOry, and it's, like we were talking about with a couple other shows, it's a show that it hasn't necessarily been completely even this season. I feel like there was 1 or 2 episodes where I was like, I don't think that was exactly hitting the mark for me that I personally wanted to see. There was a couple earlier, I think, on in the season, especially. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I really thought there were some really great moments. I really liked getting to explore the George and Dallas relationship, and even though, it was one of those things where it was pretty much the worst kept secret of the season. I feel like that George and Dallas were going to be breaking up.
I don't think it was supposed to be a kept secret. Really? Because they all openly talked about it, so
It wasn't supposed to be as open as it was.
Okay,
well. And so that kind of shaded how I watched the final, 4 or 5 episodes.
Oh, okay.
At that point, I think, so it did definitely impact that, but at the same time, it's like watching them have that slow breakup, which it was not so slow in the fact that they broke up suddenly after he made the grand gesture of buying the house, but at the same time, it's like, if you look at it knowing the information you do, and if you look especially in hindsight, you see all the signs where they clearly were not ready for it right now. It was a really, really hard arc to watch, and not in a bad way, in the best way possible, to watch that arc and feel that pain. It's like, I wasn't necessarily, it's a weird thing where I wasn't like, oh my god, these two have to get together or I'm going to be miserable and, flinging myself out of couch.
But I am glad that they did it.
Explored it, and I was really impressed with how they handled it. They got really, they were super cute last season, and they handled the coming together really well, and I think they balanced that well. And I was really, really sad with how they ended and how they ended, and I'm glad we're getting a season 3, because if they had not gone to season 3, I would have just basically
Oh yeah, that would have been such a terrible ending.
I would have basically just gone to Warner Brothers and laid down on some random place and been like, I'm not leaving until you give me some kind of wrap up, guys.
Well, that mean that wrapped it up, just not in a happy way.
Right.
I like that they take those big risks.
Right.
And that they leave it all on the line.
Right.
I said about Parks and Rec, I wish that it wasn't as comfortable as it seemed to be. I like the fact that even though it wasn't a happy ending, it was an ending that blew everything apart. Kind of similar, but on a much grander scale than the first season finale. The first season finale did. Not, obviously not just with George and Dallas, with Tessa and George, with, Dahlia just going completely insane. And then at the end, having that moment of, vulnerability and, for the first time, really who she is. And it just left so much potential. So
and Jeremy's sister singing at the end of the thing, that I'm like, and tears.
Yeah.
That was
I agree with you, though. I don't feel I do feel like there were episodes throughout the season that they weren't really what I wanted or maybe even expected, and so I didn't think it was as consistent, hence the B rather than an A. And I will say that I love that the show has as many characters as they do, and that they don't feel the need to push people just to the background, that they do explore everybody, but I wish that they explored them more evenly. Obviously the first half of the season was so focused on the Ryan and the adoption and the Shays, and then that was over. And I don't know that I'm not saying I would have wanted them to drag that out, but it felt like people got pockets of the season.
Yes.
And I wish that it was a little bit more overlapping.
Yeah.
And I think part of that too is just, when you have that many characters and you have that many storylines, things get cut for time.
And they are guest stars also.
Of course.
Availability.
And things shift, and for example, there are things that I know got cut out of the finale that I wish they had time for earlier, or if not in that episode, because I still wish I had seen that moment.
Right.
Because it would have been nice to get growth from characters, Noah specifically, that you don't get a lot of growth from him. He's kind of the comedic relief, and even his thing with Carmen, he's like, oh, I'm in love with her. I never took it all that seriously. Partially because it very obviously was just him wanting the kind of relationship not necessarily her.
Right.
So there were like little things here and there that I would have wanted to see done differently, or would have tweaked different, or me, or whatever. But I mean, it's still the show I want it to be overall. Like, it still has crazy humor, and it still has a lot of heart. Like, it goes to more serious places than most comedies do, but it does it in a way that like feels
drama,
real.
But
and,
it's
and like the whole George and Dallas thing, especially, like that got super dramatic. But at the same time, knowing it's coming because someone said it's coming or not, I felt like it was set up. You know, I felt like you looked at it was earned. Like, you looked at these characters and you saw the struggles they were having early on, and you kind of said, well, you characters, you have to notice this. We obviously all see it. You have to A, acknowledge it, and B, be willing to do something about it. And they did that. Like, they didn't just kind of wade in that pool with the synchronized swimming we never got to see. And I respect that a lot, because it goes back to what I said with Castle, which in season 5 it's like the shit or get off the pot, but they've done it already. Swimming. Oh, I talked to Emily about that. I ran what she said about it, about how like it was too expensive to do that sequence for the walk and talk, or whatever. So none of you know what we're talking about, but there was going to be a synchronized swimming moment with Dallas that I was looking forward to seeing. Oh my
god,
like, you know what, but things like that, where like
it's been a while since show's been on the air.
A show that looks at it and goes, we have to have a walk and talk conversation. I don't want to do a walk and talk. I want to do this in a funny, Chatswinian, like over the top way. What should I do? Synchronized swimming. They ended up not doing it for money. They ended up doing it at a wine tasting instead. Right. But the fact that like they're writing it thinking on that level, not just going like, oh, it's a comedy, let's just stick them in the living room and having a two-shot conversation. Like, that's why I love the show as much as I love it. Yeah. Above and beyond what it's doing with its characters, which I think it's doing great things. And I will say that like, the part of the reason I did give it a B2, and this is not really through any fault of the season we just saw, but just it sets up, you know, they set up the whole I'm going to explore life with my mom, but no, you're not, and it's totally in Alex's character to flake again. But I would want to see that, and I would want to see what it does to Tessa, and I don't know if we'll get that.
I think they said that we
might.
When I talked to Emily, I think she said that if series 1, that they'd have a way to get her for a couple episodes.
And we might,
but at the same time,
in the same capacity that we maybe would have seen.
It's also, it's like, you know, we're losing Parker too, which, I mean, obviously he was going to call it no matter what, but at the same time.
And we might get him back for a guest star here or there. And he was, you know.
Friday at 9:30 on Fox. So it's going to be interesting.
And it's late fall. So, or mid-season, it's not even enlisted. Yeah, it's not.
It's not mid-season. It's
but it's late fall, so it's November.
Barely, yeah.
So it's after baseball or whatever sport is currently on.
Anyways, it's SUBURGATORY. It's just a thing where when I was watching that finale, I was very much, you know, and I did talk with Emily about that too, because like, you know, you're watching that knowing that several of these pieces are not in their control,
right?
Which is something, you know, we talked about,
which really doesn't affect what they did now.
Right. But I mean, I'm very interested to see how everything plays out next season, because SUBURGATORY, quite frankly, and this is actually really sad to say, it's like we don't know what the show's going to be like, if only because SUBURGATORY doesn't have a place on the spot. There's no spot for it in the lineup. So it's like, you know, they've traditionally done the holiday episodes. They've done this, and that.
As long as they know when they're writing approximately when they'll air, they can avoid that.
But I'm guessing they won't. I'm guessing they won't have holidays episodes.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. They can at least avoid. Okay, well, we don't know if it's going to be weird to do Thanksgiving because we're going to be on in February. We'll just not do that.
Right.
You know, or we'll say screw it and we'll do it because our story's so great it makes sense. It doesn't matter when you're watching it. Like, I at least have faith in that writer's room that they'll do it in a way that, and I like the fact that you don't necessarily know what it's going to be. Not that I like that it doesn't have a place in the schedule, but I like the fact that they are so willing to take chances and to change things year to year, or, you know, section of story to section of story, because that just means everybody gets pushed forward and the stakes are real, and, you know, we're actually going to see something different and for the characters, if not for traditional sitcoms.
Right.
So that I'm excited about. I just want it to be a little more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, it's definitely a situation where I agree. I hope it stays a little bit more consistent as well, because when it's good, it's one of the best. Like, it's up there for me and as one of the best comedies on TV.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
Well, those were our end of year report cards.
Yay.
So I'm Danielle at Danielle TBD.
I'm Marisa at Marisa Rothman. We might have numbers next time.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned, because our next vodcast, we're gonna talk about some more shows, and then we're gonna do some pilot snap judgments. So we have some good stuff coming to keep you tided over through the summer.
Lots of thoughts.
Lots of thoughts.
Boom.